The forest was alive with whispers. Morning fog crawled along the ground, curling around gnarled tree roots and moss-covered rocks. The Pacific Northwest had a way of swallowing sound, but the seals of Team Bravo moved with methodical precision, their boots sinking into damp earth. 7 men, all seasoned operators and one newcomer, Captain Alina Eli Hayes. She was almost invisible in her camouflage, her face partially hidden beneath the brim of her tactical hat, eyes scanning every shadow, every fluttering leaf. Her Barrett .50 rested across her chest like an extension of herself, the metal cold, heavy and precise. Eli was the type of soldier who rarely spoke. Her past was classified, her accomplishments whispered about in certain intelligence circles. The men had only met her a week ago during training exercises, and already they were beginning to realize she was different. Quiet, observant, unnervingly calm. Captain Mark "Hawk" Reynolds led the team, a veteran with a weathered face and an instinct for danger. He glanced at his operators, feeling the morning's eerie stillness settle into his bones. "Fog's thick today," he said, his voice low but firm. "Keep tight, keep eyes sharp. Something about this place doesn't feel right." The team exchanged glances. There was always tension before a mission, but this felt different. Eli's instincts, honed over years of long, lonely operations, were screaming at her. She slowed her pace slightly, scanning the tree line, ears attuned to the smallest sounds, the snap of a twig, the rustle of a bush, the faintest whistle of wind through the trees. She could feel the forest pressing in, heavy and expectant as if it were waiting for something. "Hey, new girl," muttered Danny, a young SEAL with more bravado than experience. "You nervous?" Eli didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes tracked a movement too subtle for anyone else to notice, a shadow flickering between the trunks of 2 towering evergreens, a warning signal she couldn't ignore. The team pressed on, the mist making the world around them look like a dream or a nightmare waiting to happen. The crunch of leaves beneath their boots seemed unnaturally loud in the fog, echoing between the trees in a way that set their nerves on edge. Hawk stopped abruptly, holding up a hand. "Hold, something's not right." His gaze swept the tree line. For a moment all was silent, too silent. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. Then it came, a faint snap followed by a whisper of movement in the underbrush. The SEALs froze, weapons raised, muscles coiled. Eli's eyes narrowed. This wasn't wildlife. "Contact," muttered Lopez, a large man with a scar running across his cheek. Eli didn't answer. Instead, she crouched slightly, adjusting her grip on the Barrett, feeling its familiar weight settle against her shoulder. Every fiber of her being screamed that they were being watched, that something deadly waited for the perfect moment. Another sound, a twig breaking, deliberate, calculated. Then a shadow moved across the fog and the SEAL's heart skipped a beat. Hawk scanned the area with binoculars. Enemies, could be scouts, could be more, stay sharp. Danny swallowed hard. Scouts here this close. Hawk didn't answer. He couldn't. Something about the forest pressed on him like a warning, and then it hit them all at once. The smell of smoke, faint but unmistakable, carried by the damp morning air. A campfire or a trap. Eli's mind raced. She knew the patterns, the signs, the tricks that hunters of men used. This wasn't random. They had walked into something meticulously planned. The team pressed forward, cautious, scanning, alert. Fog swirled around them, thickening, making the familiar terrain alien. Every tree could conceal a sniper, every shadow a threat. Eli moved with fluid precision, her eyes darting from ridge to ridge, calculating distance, angles, and possible escape routes. A laugh echoed faintly through the trees, almost imperceptible, high-pitched mocking. Danny froze. "Did you hear that?" Eli's head snapped toward him, her gaze sharp. "They're here." Before anyone could respond, a distant crack shattered the silence, the sharp, sudden report of a rifle. Birds exploded into the misty sky, screaming in alarm. The SEALs dove instinctively, hitting the muddy ground. Fog and shadows collided, turning the forest into a living nightmare. Hawk cursed under his breath, trying to assess the situation. Ambush, ambush, positions. Eli stayed low, calculating. The sound came from the ridge to their left, barely visible through the fog. She adjusted the scope on her Barrett, breathing slowly, methodically. This was no ordinary engagement. This was a test, a deadly puzzle. Danny's hands shook as he peered through his sights. How many? Eli didn't answer. Instead, she spotted movement, small, deliberate, tactical. Not just one, but multiple threats, hidden in the mist, waiting. Her finger hovered over the trigger, ready, patient. Hawk called out orders, trying to coordinate a response, but the enemy had the advantage. The forest was their ally. The seals, despite their training, were caught in unfamiliar terrain. Eli whispered to herself, almost a mantra, "Stay calm, control the field, one shot at a time." The fog seemed to thicken around them, swallowing sound and light. Every second stretched, every heartbeat thundered. The seals looked at each other, uncertainty in their eyes, but Eli remained a pillar of unwavering focus. She could feel the ambush closing in, like a predator circling its prey. Then just as suddenly, the forest fell silent again, as though holding its breath. The team was frozen, waiting, ears straining, hearts hammering. Every muscle in Eli's body tensed, her eyes scanning the horizon. And then she saw it. A shadow moving along the ridge, an enemy operative perfectly concealed, unaware that someone was already watching. Eli's lips curled slightly, the barest hint of a smile. She had been waiting for this moment her entire life. She lifted the Barrett, sighting the target, breath in, breath out. The seals didn't know it yet, but the ambush they walked into would become a battle of ghosts and shadows. And the quiet, lone female sniper among them was about to change everything. The forest erupted. One moment it was heavy with mist and silence. The next, the air screamed with gunfire. Trees shuddered under the impact of rounds, leaves and debris raining down as the seals scrambled for cover. Shouts of warning and orders collided with the metallic crack of rifles, the echo of explosions, and the terrified cries of injured men. Captain Hawk dropped behind a fallen log, his tactical headset crackling with static. "Bravo team, form a perimeter, return fire, don't let them flank." His voice was authoritative, but under the fog of chaos, his calm veneer barely held. Eli pressed herself flat against a mossy embankment, the barrel of her Barrett gleaming through the mist. Every instinct screamed for patience. She had studied ambushes like this before, understood the psychology of attackers, the mistakes they made when they thought they had the upper hand. Calm was her weapon, precision her shield. From the ridge to the left, shadows darted between trees, glinting in the early light. The enemy was hidden, trained, and aggressive. Each movement was deliberate, calculating. The SEALs realized almost too late that this was no random firefight. They were walking into a trap that had been meticulously planned. "Return fire, focus on suppressing," shouted Lopez, attempting to cover the team's flank. Bullets tore through the air, hitting trees and mud with loud thuds, but the attackers were elusive. Eli's pulse remained steady. She spotted the first enemy operative, a slender figure crouched behind a cluster of ferns, aiming at the SEALs. She exhaled slowly, aligning the crosshairs, every muscle poised. The distance was perfect, the angle precise. One controlled squeeze and the shot rang out. The operative went down silently, face pressed into the mud. The forest seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Then panic rippled through the remaining attackers. The SEALs, realizing someone was systematically eliminating their enemies, began scanning the tree line, but Eli had already melted into the shadows again. "Did you see that?" Danny hissed from behind a tree. His voice trembled. "Who, what?" Hawk's jaw tightened. "She's a sniper and she just changed the game." The team moved cautiously, using the fallen logs and uneven terrain for cover. They returned fire, attempting to regain control, but the attackers were strategic, firing from multiple angles, disappearing as quickly as they emerged. It was like trying to hit ghosts. Through the chaos, Eli's calm focus became their lifeline. She calculated trajectories, wind shifts, distance, and potential escape routes for the enemy. Her shots were precise, deadly, and almost surgical. Each enemy she eliminated shifted the balance slightly in their favor. But the ambush wasn't over. A sudden volley from the ridge knocked Lopez to the ground, his rifle skittering into the mud. He groaned, clutching his leg, the pain and shock etched across his face. Danny tried to crawl to his side but was forced back by another series of shots. Hawk clenched his teeth, assessing their dwindling options. "We're boxed in. No retreat, no flanking. We hold here until we can." His words were cut off as another enemy operative appeared from the mist, aiming directly at him. Eli reacted before anyone else could. The Barrett barked, a single shot echoing through the dense forest. The enemy dropped mid-step, a blur of motion frozen in death. Hawk's eyes widened. He hadn't even seen her move. "Who the hell is she?" he muttered under his breath. Eli didn't respond. Her focus was absolute, every sense attuned to the rhythm of the firefight. She detected movement to her right, another operative trying to flank the team through a narrow pass. With a slight tilt of her scope, she tracked his path. Another squeeze. Another enemy eliminated. Danny stared, mouth agape. She's unreal. Hawk gave him a sharp look. "Focus, don't lose your head, watch her and learn." The fog was thickening, rolling through the trees, turning the forest into a maze of gray and green. Each shadow could conceal another threat. Yet, despite the overwhelming chaos, Eli moved with the precision of a predator. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. She struck only when the opportunity was perfect. Then came the noise, a whistle, high and shrill, almost melodic, cutting through the gunfire. The SEALs froze. It was a signal, a command perhaps, for the enemy to regroup. And it worked. The attackers momentarily pulled back, reassessing their positions, leaving the forest eerily quiet except for the heavy breathing and groans of the injured. Hawk took a deep breath, trying to regain his bearings. "Eli, we need to know how many are left. Can you?" She cut him off with a sharp hand gesture. Her eyes were locked on a ridge about 50 meters away. A figure moved carefully, testing the line of sight, searching. She nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, before raising the Barrett once more. Her first shot had instilled fear. Her next would teach respect. The figure froze, realizing too late that someone was watching. Eli's calm exhalation, the squeeze of the trigger and the crack of the rifle shattered the moment. The operative fell, and the forest seemed to shudder again. Danny crawled closer to Hawk, whispering, How is one person doing all this?" Hawk didn't answer. He was scanning the tree line, every sense screaming the same truth. They had been saved, for now, by a lone sniper whose reputation they barely understood. But then Eli noticed something that made her blood run cold. Among the scattered enemies, one operative moved differently, deliberate, experienced, almost like a shadow with intent. This wasn't a regular soldier. This was someone trained to kill elite operatives like them, someone who might challenge her directly. Eli adjusted her scope, tracking the new threat. Her calm mask remained, but inside, every nerve was on high alert. This opponent was skilled, too skilled for the ordinary. She would need every ounce of focus to survive the next engagement. Hawk signaled the team to move. "We need to push forward, stay in formation, watch your angles." As the SEALs moved cautiously, Eli covered them from a high vantage point, each shot picking off stragglers who tried to flank or escape. Her presence was a ghostly advantage, but the enemy now suspected something, or someone, was hunting them. The forest, once serene and whispering, had turned into a battlefield of shadows, gunfire, and fear. And at the center of it all was Eli, silent, lethal, and in complete control. Unseen by the SEALs, another sniper watched from deeper in the forest, eyes fixed on Eli, calculating her every move. The battle was far from over, and the hunter was about to become the hunted. The forest had transformed into a crucible of chaos. Smoke and mist mingled, clinging to the trees, making visibility nearly impossible beyond a few yards. The echoes of gunfire had faded into distant cracks, leaving behind the sound of hurried breathing, snapping twigs, and the occasional grunt of a wounded soldier. SEAL Team Bravo huddled behind a combination of logs, rocks, and low ridges, trying to maintain some semblance of formation. They were battered, disoriented, but alive, and that was almost entirely because of one figure, Captain Alina Eli Hayes. Eli moved like a shadow among the trees, the massive Barrett .50 rifle practically an extension of her body. Every movement was calculated, deliberate. Her first shot had turned the tide of the ambush, sowing fear and confusion among the enemy. Now, with the fog thick and visibility limited, she began her deadly, methodical hunt. A twig snapped near the far ridge. Eli froze, eyes narrowing. A faint silhouette crouched behind a fallen tree, attempting to regroup with another operative. She exhaled slowly, aligning her crosshairs. Time slowed. This was not the chaos of panic. This was hunting, precision-born, cold, and unyielding. Bang! The enemy operative dropped instantly, a marionette with strings cut. Eli didn't flinch. She didn't celebrate. She simply scanned the area for the next movement. From her vantage point, she could see subtle shifts in the fog, a knee moving, a shoulder jerking, the glint of metal. Each enemy tried to move, reposition, escape, but Eli anticipated every action, every instinct-driven flinch. She picked them off one by one, her presence invisible, her mark unerring. Behind her, the SEALs whispered among themselves. Danny, the youngest of the team, stared wide-eyed at her. How is she doing this? Hawk's eyes never left the tree line. Focus on survival. Watch and learn. That woman is the difference between life and death right now. The team moved carefully, keeping low and letting Eli cover their advance. Each enemy neutralized added a layer of dread to the remaining operatives. Panic was setting in. Soldiers trained to fight elite SEALs were now facing something they couldn't see, something that could kill from hundreds of meters without warning. Eli's eyes caught the movement of another operative trying to flank. He moved too fast, too haphazardly. She exhaled, steadying her aim. Bang! Another enemy down. This one had a communication device strapped to his vest. Eli noted it mentally. Whoever had planned this ambush wanted coordination. Whoever was left probably had higher-level training, intelligence, and patience. She had to move carefully. Every shot mattered. Every moment counted. Hawk motioned for the team to push forward slowly. They needed to secure higher ground and regroup with minimal exposure. But the forest wasn't just hiding enemies. It was alive with traps, shadows, and threats that could strike at any moment. Eli spotted something, a small cluster of rocks that seemed slightly disturbed, tripwires. A simple but deadly setup meant to catch the unwary. She marked it silently and motioned to Hawk. He nodded, understanding her unspoken command. She would cover them and they would proceed carefully. "Stay tight, watch your step. Follow her lead," Hawk ordered. The SEALs obeyed, creeping forward, hearts pounding. Every step was measured, every breath controlled. Another crack of a rifle echoed from the ridge, but it was off target. Eli's shot had already neutralized that threat. She scanned higher, noticing movement in the fog's deeper shadows. A tall figure, moving with deliberate intent. Not just a soldier, but a trained killer. Someone who could challenge her. Her pulse remained calm, but inside, adrenaline surged. She would have to be smarter, faster, and deadlier. The SEALs moved as she provided overwatch, firing only when necessary, relying on her judgment. Every enemy that appeared was eliminated with quiet efficiency. There was no wasted motion, no missed shot. She became a force of nature, unseen but undeniably lethal. At one point, Danny stumbled over a root. A shot rang out from a distant ridge aimed directly at him. Eli reacted instantly, tracking the shooter, adjusting for distance and wind. Bang! The enemy's head snapped back and he collapsed into the underbrush. Danny froze, staring at Eli in awe. She saved me," he whispered. Hawk didn't respond, but his eyes betrayed his respect. He had seen many operators, many snipers, but Eli's calm lethality was something else entirely, something that seemed almost unnatural. The team advanced again, but the enemy was far from finished. They had regrouped slightly, trying to coordinate to flank to survive. Eli spotted them, smaller groups, moving cautiously, trying to retreat through the dense fog. She shifted position, using a fallen log as cover, and began picking them off with surgical precision. Bang! Another enemy fell. Bang! Another. The forest became a maze of silent corpses, punctuated by the occasional echo of a distant shot. Fear and confusion radiated from the remaining operatives. They had trained for combat, for ambushes, for elite operators, but none had faced someone like Eli. A lone sniper, calculating, patient, and terrifyingly efficient. Then came the sound that made Eli's blood run cold, a whistle, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the fog like a knife. The enemy was signaling reinforcements, or perhaps a hidden commander. The remaining operatives froze, their confidence shaken but not entirely broken. They were waiting for something, someone. Eli's eyes narrowed. She recognized the tactic immediately. The whistle meant an elite operative was about to intervene, someone skilled, someone capable of matching her. The battle had only just begun. Hawk called for a brief pause. "We can't advance further without knowing what's out there. Hold position, cover each other." Eli remained crouched, scanning the ridge. Her Barrett was steady, her mind racing. She could feel the new threat approaching, calculated, precise, deadly. The SEALs, unaware of the specific danger, trusted her implicitly. They had no choice. She had proven herself the line between survival and death. As the team held position, Eli observed her opponent's patterns, anticipating their moves. Every shadow, every twitch, every muffled footstep was a piece of the puzzle she was solving in real time. And then she saw it, a silhouette emerging slowly through the mist. Tall, confident, moving like a predator. Not just another enemy soldier. This was someone trained to hunt elite operatives. A sniper like her, or something equally deadly. Eli's lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time since the ambush began, she felt a thrill of danger. Not panic, not fear, but the cold, sharp focus of someone who understood a true challenge when it presented itself. The forest held its breath as two shadows, each a predator in their own right, prepared to face off. Eli had eliminated enemies one by one, but now the real game was about to begin, and the hunter was about to become the hunted. The mist clung thickly to the forest floor, curling around tree trunks and snaking along fallen branches. The air was dense with smoke, dirt, and the metallic tang of gunfire from the earlier ambush. SEAL Team Bravo moved cautiously, still recovering from the initial chaos, every step measured, every movement deliberate. The forest no longer felt like a home of nature. It had become a labyrinth of death, shadows concealing more than just enemy soldiers. Captain Hawk signaled the team to hold their position behind a large fallen cedar. "Assess, regroup, watch your angles," he ordered, voice taut with exhaustion and stress. Injuries from the ambush were minimal but serious enough to slow their movement. Bloodied hands and scraped skin testified to how close the team had come to disaster. Eli remained behind the protective cover of her position, scanning the dense fog with her Barrett .50. Her breaths were controlled, slow, deliberate, her trademark calm in a storm of chaos. But beneath her composure, her mind was working furiously. Something was wrong. The ambush, meticulously executed, hinted at far more than random hostility. She could feel it in the rhythm of the enemy's movements, the spacing, the timing, the precision. Then she saw it. A figure moved differently than the others. Not in haste, not in panic but with careful, deliberate steps. Every motion precise, every pause calculated. This wasn't a regular operative trying to survive. This was someone in command, a hidden leader orchestrating the ambush, likely controlling the remaining operatives and setting traps to anticipate every move of the SEALs. Eli adjusted her scope, tracing the figure along a ridge partially concealed by fog. Her instincts screamed danger. This was someone she couldn't afford to underestimate. Slowly, she traced the path of the operative, noting the cover and likely escape routes. Then she realized the truth. The figure was moving toward the same path the SEALs intended to take. "Captain," Danny whispered, his voice trembling. "Over there on the ridge, someone's moving." Hawk lifted his binoculars, squinting through the fog. "You see him?" he asked. His tone was wary, cautious. He recognized tactical movements when he saw them, but even he couldn't identify the subtle signs of someone with elite training. Eli remained silent, her finger brushing the trigger lightly. She had already calculated wind drift, distance, bullet drop, and the timing of the enemy's movements. One wrong decision could cost her team everything. Bang! She fired a warning shot, not to kill, not yet, but to gauge the enemy's reaction. The operative froze, then moved with almost inhuman precision behind a tree. Eli's eyes narrowed. He was good. Better than most she had faced. The SEALs held their ground, following her subtle hand signals. Every step forward was risky. The mist limited visibility to just a few yards, and every movement beyond that could trigger another sniper or hidden operative. From the ridge, a faint metallic glint caught Eli's eye, a scope reflecting light from the mist. Someone else was watching, waiting. The ambush had layers. The first wave of operatives had been cleared, but now she realized the forest still held threats. Shadows moved, subtle but deadly, hinting at traps, snipers, and hidden shooters. Hawk's voice broke through her focus. "We need to push forward to the clearing. There's a better vantage point there. Danny, Lopez, cover the right flank. Eli, provide overwatch. Keep them pinned while we move." Eli didn't respond verbally. She simply shifted slightly, finding a small mound that gave her a clear line of sight toward the ridge. Her eyes scanned every possible threat, tracking movement, predicting their next steps. It didn't take long. The hidden operative, a tall, broad-shouldered figure expertly trained, emerged from the fog, moving in a way that betrayed confidence and lethal skill. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't hiding. He was observing, calculating, and preparing to strike. Eli's pulse remained steady. She exhaled slowly, her crosshairs zeroing in on a target she knew could kill in an instant if he noticed her first. The forest was quiet again, the only sounds the distant drip of water, the wind through leaves, and the occasional creak of branches. Then the operative shifted, and for the first time Eli saw something familiar, an insignia on his shoulder, subtle but clear. A private military contractor with a history of elite operations. Her mind raced. This was no ordinary ambush. This was a calculated strike, designed to test them, perhaps even eliminate the SEALs entirely. Bang! The shot rang out from Eli's Barrett, a whispering thunderclap that echoed through the misty trees. The operative's shoulder jerked violently, but he didn't fall. Instead, he adjusted instantly, revealing a hardened, trained combatant who had survived countless encounters. Eli's eyes widened slightly. He was skilled, perhaps as skilled as she was. Hawk cursed under his breath. "Eli, he's not going down easily." Eli's calm exterior didn't waver. She moved slightly, shifting her position behind a moss-covered boulder, keeping the enemy in sight while minimizing exposure. She was patient. She knew he would make the first mistake, and when he did, she would be ready. Meanwhile, the SEALs continued advancing under her cover. Each step was measured, cautious, fraught with risk. The forest was alive with shadows and danger. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig could be another operative, another sniper, another threat waiting to strike. Eli's mind calculated the possibilities. She could take the shot and risk revealing her position. She could wait and allow the enemy to gain the upper hand. Or she could manipulate the battlefield, using the terrain, the fog, and her team's movements to force him into a vulnerable position. She chose the latter. A decoy movement, Danny popped out slightly, drawing fire from a lower ridge. The hidden operative shifted, aiming carefully. That was all Eli needed. With precise timing, she squeezed the trigger, her shot ripping through the mist and hitting him in the side. He staggered, then disappeared into cover. The forest fell silent once more. The remaining SEALs looked to Eli, realizing the scale of the threat had just been revealed. This hidden operative was more than an ordinary enemy. He was the mastermind behind the ambush, and he was still alive. Hawk exhaled slowly. Good work, but he's not done yet. Watch your angles. He's still out there, and he's probably setting something up right now. Eli didn't respond. Her eyes scanned the ridge, every nerve alert. She knew the next wave of danger was coming, and she also knew one thing: she was the only one capable of stopping it. Through the mist, a shadow shifted, watching Eli from beyond the tree line. The hidden operative hadn't been alone. Someone else had been coordinating the attack, and now they knew she was there. The forest was no longer just a battlefield. It was a trap, and the real danger was yet to come. The forest had become a labyrinth of mist, shadows, and danger. Every step felt heavy, as though the trees themselves were pressing in, observing, waiting. The SEALs had regained a fragile footing after the initial ambush, but the sense of dread hung over them like a storm cloud. Their rescuer, Captain Alina Eli Hayes, had taken down the initial wave of attackers with almost unnatural precision, but the threat was far from over. Eli moved like a ghost among the underbrush, her massive Barrett .50 rifle cradled in her arms. Each shot she fired had been deliberate, calculated, and deadly, but now she faced a more insidious challenge. The remaining enemy operatives weren't just soldiers. They were hunters, trained to survive under elite pressure. And lurking beyond the fog was the hidden operative she had glimpsed earlier, the orchestrator of the ambush, still alive and more dangerous than ever. The SEALs cautiously advanced under her cover, every movement deliberate. Danny stayed close to Hawk, the young man's hands trembling slightly, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. Lopez moved beside him, scanning the tree line with tight focus, his scars a testament to previous encounters with death. The forest around them was eerily quiet now, the chaotic gunfire replaced by tense anticipation. Eli's eyes darted through the mist, tracking subtle movements. Shadows shifted, leaves rustled unnaturally, and the smell of smoke lingered in the damp air. She adjusted her position, kneeling behind a fallen log, sighting along the barrel of her rifle. She spotted a glint of metal, a rifle scope reflecting the early morning light through the fog. Someone else was watching. She exhaled slowly, steadying her heartbeat. This wasn't panic. This was a test, a duel, and Eli thrived in such moments. She began to stalk her prey, moving silently, shifting positions with deliberate care. Every enemy she had eliminated so far had been visible, vulnerable. Now the hunter had become the hunted. A faint rustle to her right. Eli pivoted slightly, keeping low, and sighted another operative attempting to flank the team through a narrow path of fallen trees. Her finger eased onto the trigger. Bang! The shot rang out, and the operative dropped silently into the mist. Danny's voice trembled. She's like a shadow. How is she seeing all of this? Hawk didn't answer. His eyes were glued to the tree line, aware that the forest was far from clear. Focus on your movements. Don't get in her way. Watch her. Eli moved forward in small, calculated steps, scanning every ridge, every shadow. The remaining operatives were clever, but they were panicked, their confidence shattered by her relentless accuracy. She anticipated their moves before they executed them, cutting off escape routes and forcing them into positions where she could strike without revealing herself. Another crack from the distance, an enemy sniper firing at the SEALs. The bullet whizzed past Danny's head, embedding into the bark of a tree. Eli reacted instantly, tracing the origin of the shot through the mist. She adjusted her aim, exhaled, and squeezed. Bang! The enemy sniper crumpled, falling into the underbrush. Hawk's jaw tightened. Good shot, but that means there's more of them out there. This is getting complicated. Eli didn't respond verbally. Her eyes were sharp, calculating, alert to every movement. She knew the hidden operative, the one orchestrating this ambush, was still observing, waiting for an opening. Every shot she fired, every enemy she eliminated, was a signal that she was the dominant force in this deadly game. The forest, thick with fog, became a chessboard. Shadows moved carefully, often too cautiously, yet revealing enough for Eli to track and eliminate threats one by one. A young operative attempted to sneak behind a tree to gain a vantage point. Bang! He went down silently. A flinch, a twitch, a misstep, any of these could be fatal in the deadly dance that Eli conducted. Suddenly she noticed movement behind a ridge taller, more deliberate than the others. It wasn't panic. It wasn't fear. It was calculated, almost clinical. The hidden operative had reappeared, assessing the battlefield, likely calculating his next move. Eli crouched, shifting slightly behind a mossy boulder for cover. She didn't fire immediately. This was a different type of prey, one who could anticipate bullets, understand tactics, and strike with deadly precision. The hunter had become the hunted. Meanwhile, the seals pressed forward cautiously. Each step was coordinated, relying entirely on Eli's cover. Every rustle, every snap of a branch could be a threat. Every shadow could conceal a sniper waiting for the perfect moment. The tension was suffocating, the forest alive with hidden danger. Eli's breath remained steady. She began to manipulate the battlefield subtly, drawing remaining enemies into vulnerable positions. She fired only when she had absolute certainty of success. Bang! Another operative dropped silently. Bang! Another. Each shot calculated to minimize exposure and maximize impact. From the corner of her vision, she noticed movement in the far tree line. The hidden operative was advancing, careful, deliberate. He wasn't making mistakes. He was studying her, likely as she had studied him. Eli knew the next engagement would be a battle of skill, patience, and nerve. She had eliminated most of the operatives already, but the orchestrator remained, a predator matching her move for move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Hawk signaled for a brief regroup. "We need to consolidate. He's out there and he's skilled. Don't take unnecessary risks." Eli stayed low, adjusting her position to maintain a clear line of sight on the approaching enemy. Her pulse remained calm, her mind sharp, every sense focused. This was no longer just a firefight. It was a duel between two highly trained operators, one unseen by the other until the perfect shot presented itself. The fog swirled around her, masking her movements but also the hidden operatives. Every sound was amplified, the drip of water, the rustle of leaves, the creak of a branch. Each noise was a clue, each shadow a potential threat. Eli's eyes flicked across the forest floor, calculating angles, anticipating moves, predicting where the next attack would come from. Then she saw it, a faint glint of metal reflecting off the fog. He had positioned himself for a potential ambush, calculating her pattern, likely waiting for her to make the first mistake. Eli exhaled slowly, adjusting her scope. The seals behind her crouched tense, trusting her to keep them alive. She fired, once, precisely forcing him to adjust his position. Bang! He stumbled, disappearing into the mist temporarily but not defeated. Hawk muttered under his breath. "She's buying us time, but he's not done. I can feel it. Something tells me this isn't over." Eli's focus remained absolute. She knew the enemy wasn't just dangerous. He was intelligent, patient, and calculating. Every move she made from this point on would be critical. One misstep could cost the team everything. From deeper in the mist, another shadow shifted, silent, deliberate, watching Eli's every move. The orchestrator was still alive, but now it was clear. She wasn't the only hunter in this forest. The real test was about to begin. The mist had thickened into a nearly tangible wall, clinging to the trees and sinking into every crevice of the forest floor. The sunlight struggled to pierce the gray haze, casting the battlefield in a cold, diffused light. Every movement was muted, every sound amplified, leaves crackling under boots, twigs snapping under cautious steps, distant echoes of gunfire from the earlier ambush. The forest had become a living entity, watching, waiting, anticipating the next deadly move. Captain Eli Hayes crouched behind a fallen cedar, her massive Barrett .50 rifle cradled in her arms like an extension of her body. She had eliminated nearly all of the ambush team's operatives, but one remained, the hidden orchestrator, the predator who had set this entire deadly trap. He was out there somewhere, a ghost in the fog, matching her patience and precision shot for shot. Eli scanned the ridge through the mist, eyes narrowing. There, a faint glint of metal reflecting the weak sunlight. He was there. The enemy sniper had positioned himself atop a slight rise, partially hidden by mossy rocks and the gnarled roots of ancient trees. The distance was significant but manageable for her Barrett. She exhaled slowly, adjusting the scope, feeling the familiar weight of the rifle settle into her shoulder. The seals below her moved cautiously, trusting her cover entirely. Every step they took could trigger another trap, another well-aimed shot. Danny's hands trembled slightly, and Hawk's jaw was tight with tension. "Stay sharp," Hawk whispered. "She's our only advantage right now." Eli didn't reply. She was focused, calculating every detail. Wind speed, bullet drop, angle, distance, even the subtle way the mist could distort visibility. Every factor mattered in this deadly chess game. Suddenly, the enemy sniper shifted, adjusting his position. Eli's pulse remained steady, but her mind raced. He was experienced, deliberate, dangerous. She had anticipated this. He would reposition, searching for an angle she hadn't predicted, but she was ready. Bang! Her shot echoed through the mist. The bullet struck the rock near him, a near miss intended to gauge his reaction. The enemy froze, scanning for the source, realizing someone was watching. The duel had begun. The forest seemed to shrink, the mist pressing in closer, muffling sound but amplifying tension. Eli moved slightly, using a fallen log for cover while keeping her scope trained on the enemy. She fired again, a warning shot, precise, controlled. He ducked behind cover, revealing the high-level tactical training she had suspected. Hawk muttered from below, tension in his voice. "That's no ordinary operative. He's planning something, calculating, waiting for the right moment." Eli didn't respond. Her focus sharpened further. She understood the game now. This wasn't just a sniper duel. It was a test of patience, nerves, and anticipation. One mistake, one miscalculation could mean death, not just for her but for the entire SEAL team. The enemy sniper reappeared, partially exposed, scanning the fog for movement. Eli's eyes narrowed. She calculated his pattern. He paused after every 3 seconds, scanning slowly, deliberately. She had his rhythm. She exhaled, finger tightening on the trigger. Bang! The shot struck near his left shoulder, forcing him to drop lower, recalculating his position. The forest echoed with the sound, but he was far from defeated. He adjusted, now using a combination of the terrain and the fog as cover, a true predator matching her move for move. Eli shifted again, maintaining her concealment, her eyes never leaving the target. She realized something chilling. This enemy wasn't just skilled. He was patient. He could wait, watch, and kill with deadly accuracy. Their duel wasn't just about reflexes. It was about mental endurance, predicting each other's thoughts and movements under pressure. Below her, the SEALs were advancing carefully, providing feints and movement to distract potential threats. Each action they took was coordinated with her surveillance, a delicate dance of strategy and survival. Eli spotted a faint movement in her peripheral vision, a shadow shifting behind a tree further down the ridge. Another operative, Or perhaps a trap laid to distract her. She adjusted her focus, ready to fire at a moment's notice. Bang! She fired again, the bullet striking true. Another enemy operative fell silently into the mist, confirming her suspicion. This duel was escalating, but she had control. Every shot was calculated, every movement intentional. She was the hunter now, guiding the battlefield to her advantage. The enemy sniper shifted, realizing he was being hunted. He began repositioning again, moving methodically along the ridge, trying to gain a better angle. Eli anticipated his movement, adjusting her scope slightly, predicting the path he would take. Bang! Her shot hit his knee, bringing him down partially behind cover. He cursed under his breath, clearly skilled but not invincible. He assessed the battlefield quickly, calculating his next move with precision. He wasn't panicking yet, but the stakes were rising. Hawk's voice crackled over comms. "Eli, you've got him pinned, but he's still dangerous. Stay sharp. Don't get drawn out too far." Eli's focus didn't waver. She knew exactly what she had to do. The enemy was skilled, yes, but she had the advantage of observation, patience, and deadly precision. She waited for him to expose just enough of himself, then fired. Bang! This time her shot hit his shoulder, sending him sprawling behind cover. He had underestimated her patience, her ability to calculate and predict. The mist swirled around him, masking his movements, but Eli tracked every subtle twitch, every indication of his position. The duel had shifted. He was no longer fully in control. She had turned the tables. The SEALs below her, aware of her success, moved cautiously but steadily, regrouping while trusting her cover. Eli exhaled slowly, maintaining composure. She had forced him into a defensive position, but she knew better than to strike recklessly. The forest was alive with danger. He could still strike, and she could still make a miscalculation. Then suddenly, a whistle echoed through the mist, sharp, deliberate, unmistakable. Another enemy, hidden deeper in the forest, was signaling. The orchestrator wasn't alone. There were layers to this ambush she hadn't fully accounted for. Eli's eyes narrowed. The duel had become more than a personal battle. It was a war of strategy, patience, and deadly instinct. She adjusted her scope, tracking the primary sniper while noting the positions of potential reinforcements. She had to anticipate their moves before they even made them. Bang! Another shot rang out from her rifle, striking an enemy attempting to flank her position. The duel was escalating, deadly precise. The forest had become a theater of shadows, mist, and silent death, two predators moving unseen, calculating, hunting, each waiting for the other to slip. The hidden operative glanced up from cover, eyes locking onto her position. For the first time, they both realized this duel wasn't just about survival, it was about dominance. Only one would emerge from the mist alive, and the next move would determine who. The mist hung heavier now, thickening to the point that it seemed to soak into the skin, chilling and disorienting. The forest had transformed from a familiar wilderness into a twisted maze of shadows and hidden threats. Each tree loomed like a sentinel, every branch a potential trap. The echoes of gunfire had faded into tense silence, but the tension remained, palpable and suffocating. Captain Alina Eli Hayes crouched behind a moss-covered log, her Barrett .50 rifle cradled in her arms like an extension of her body. Every muscle was coiled, every nerve on high alert. She had eliminated nearly all of the enemy operatives, her precise shots sending fear rippling through the misty battlefield. But the orchestrator, the hidden operative, remained. He had not yet been defeated, and now, Eli realized, the fight had escalated beyond simple survival. Hawk's voice crackled over comms. "Eli's status." "Still in position," she replied calmly, eyes scanning the ridge. "Primary threat moving cautiously. He's skilled but not invincible. Secondary threats remain, likely coordinated by him." The SEALs advanced cautiously behind her cover. Danny's hands were trembling, his weapon clutched tightly, but Hawk's presence beside him steadied his nerves. Every step forward was a test of patience, every movement measured. They relied entirely on Eli, the lone figure who had turned the tide of the ambush. Suddenly, a flash of movement to the far right, a shadow shifting behind a tree. Bang! Eli's rifle barked, sending another operative sprawling into the mist. The forest seemed to shudder, silent except for the soft drip of water and the distant rustle of leaves. Danny gasped, "How many of them are left?" Hawk's jaw tightened. "Too many for comfort, keep moving, trust her." Eli's focus never wavered. She adjusted her scope, tracking the orchestrator, the predator who had nearly matched her in skill. Every twitch, every slight movement revealed something about his plan. He was waiting, calculating, and she could feel it, the tension like an invisible thread connecting them across the misty expanse. Then from deeper in the forest, a sharp whistle echoed, command, signal, or warning. The orchestrator had reinforcements. Eli's eyes narrowed. She had expected a duel, but now she realized this was layered, coordinated, deadly, and strategic. The forest itself was a weapon in their enemy's hands. Hawk signaled a halt. "We can't advance blindly. Secondary threats could cut us off. Hold positions, let her work." Eli shifted slightly, keeping low, eyes scanning the ridge. The orchestrator had moved, partially exposed, trying to flank them through the dense mist. Her fingers tightened on the trigger. This was the moment she had been waiting for, a combination of patience, precision, and opportunity. Bang! The enemy went down, but not without consequence. A sudden crack from behind, another operative had slipped past the SEAL's flanks. Lopez cursed, firing wildly, but the mist obscured his view. Eli reacted instantly, tracking the intruder with the Barrett. Another calculated shot, and the threat fell silent. The forest was alive with tension. Every rustle, every snap, every distant sound could mean another enemy closing in. The SEALs moved cautiously, relying entirely on Eli's cover. She was their lifeline, the single predator in a field of shadows, and the responsibility weighed on her. One miscalculation, one missed shot, and the team could be lost. Eli noticed the orchestrator re-emerging, more cautious, yet deliberate in his movements. He was skilled, precise, and patient, matching her calculation for calculation. The duel wasn't over. It had merely shifted into a higher stakes game. Hawk whispered from behind her, tension in his voice. "Eli, he's testing you now. Watch for patterns, predict him." She adjusted her scope, tracking subtle shifts, muscle movements, positioning, shadows, and waited. This was no longer just shooting. This was a battle of wits, a duel of minds hidden in mist. Bang! Another shot echoed. The orchestrator fell partially, but immediately used cover to reassess his position. Eli exhaled slowly, remaining calm. She had forced him into a defensive posture, but he was still dangerous. From the mist, another sound, a snapping branch, indicated yet another operative had moved into position, likely trying to flank. Eli's eyes flicked to the movement, and without hesitation she fired. Another operative eliminated. Danny whispered under his breath, awe and terror in his voice. "She's unstoppable." Hawk didn't answer. His eyes scanned the mist, wary of every shadow. Unstoppable doesn't mean invincible. Don't forget that. Eli's focus remained absolute. She shifted position slightly, keeping low, eyes locked on the orchestrator. She calculated trajectory, wind, bullet drop, and timing. She could feel the pressure, mental, physical, emotional, but it sharpened her senses rather than blunted them. The orchestrator finally revealed a pattern. He was trying to manipulate her, to draw her out of cover, to force a mistake. Eli recognized it immediately. She would not be baited. Instead, she began a counter-strategy, slow movements, subtle shifts, controlling the battlefield without revealing herself. Bang! Her rifle barked, striking true. The orchestrator staggered, partially exposed, a grimace of surprise crossing his face. but he remained dangerous. He had survived previous ambushes, trained for situations exactly like this. Eli knew she couldn't simply rely on superior marksmanship. She needed to outthink him entirely. The seals pressed forward under her cover, each step cautious. The forest was a minefield of shadows, mist, and potential death. Every rustle could mean another hidden enemy. Hawk's commands were whispered, taut with tension. Move slowly, watch your angles, stay with her. Eli tracked the orchestrator's movement, predicting his next steps with a combination of instinct, experience, and tactical calculation. She realized he was trying to create a trap for her team, a distraction to isolate them. But she had anticipated it. Bang! The orchestrator stumbled again, this time more seriously wounded. He fell behind a large rock, reassessing, clearly calculating his next move. Eli's pulse remained steady, but inside her mind raced. The duel had reached a breaking point. Every shot, every calculation, every movement would determine the outcome. Hawk whispered urgently, "Eli, he's desperate now. He'll make mistakes. Stay sharp." Eli didn't respond verbally. She exhaled slowly, adjusted her scope, and waited. The forest held its breath with her. Shadows shifted in the mist, wind carried faint sounds, and the distant echoes of the ambush seemed to linger like ghosts. Finally, the orchestrator made a move, leaving cover, attempting a wide flank. Eli had anticipated it perfectly. She adjusted her aim, predicted the trajectory, accounted for wind and distance, and fired. Bang! The shot struck true, hitting him in the leg and sending him sprawling into the mist. He cursed, realizing he had underestimated her patience, calculation, and lethal precision. The duel had tilted irrevocably in her favor. The forest seemed to relax slightly, the tension easing as the remaining operatives paused, witnessing the orchestrator's defeat. Eli remained crouched, rifle ready, scanning for any hidden threats. The seals regrouped, breathing heavily, relying on her to guide them through the final phase. As the mist swirled and the orchestrator lay wounded, a subtle, deliberate movement caught Eli's eye. Another shadow, silent, calculating, watching her from deeper in the forest. She had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Something else was out there, and the next strike could come from anywhere. The mist hung like a living shroud over the forest, thick and suffocating, curling around tree trunks and wrapping every shadow in uncertainty. The battle had left the landscape scarred, broken branches, trampled foliage, and the remnants of firefights littered the forest floor. Every sound was magnified, a drip of water, the rustle of leaves, the faint groan of injured operatives. The forest was quiet, but only in appearance. Danger still lurked, unseen, waiting for the slightest mistake. Captain Alina Eli Hayes crouched behind a large fallen cedar, her Barrett .50 rifle ready, the scope trained on a distant ridge where the orchestrator, the enemy sniper who had masterminded the ambush, had been pinned moments earlier. His movements were slow, calculated, and desperate. Every shift in the fog revealed his skill, his intent, and his determination to survive. But Eli had anticipated this. Every tactic, every movement, every subtle rhythm of the battlefield was a piece in her mental map. She was ready for the final act. Below her, SEAL Team Bravo regrouped, bruised, shaken, and exhausted. Danny's hand still trembled slightly as he gripped his rifle, while Lopez tended to minor wounds. Hawk moved among them, issuing whispered commands and cautious encouragements. The team relied entirely on Eli. She had become both shield and spear, a single predator controlling the outcome of the battle with uncanny precision. Eli exhaled slowly, eyes never leaving the orchestrator. He had repositioned behind a cluster of rocks, partially concealed by mist, attempting to gain a tactical advantage. His sniper rifle glinted faintly in the diffused light, a weapon that could still claim lives if she misjudged. She adjusted her scope, accounting for distance, wind, and bullet trajectory. Every calculation had been made thousands of times in her mind. Every instinct had led her to this moment. She had eliminated nearly all of his operatives, controlled the battlefield and neutralized flanking threats. Now, it was a duel between two predators, one at the pinnacle of skill, the other at the very edge of strategic patience. Bang! Her shot rang out, echoing through the mist. The orchestrator flinched, dropping partially behind cover. Eli remained motionless, her body coiled, ready for his next move. He was skilled, experienced, dangerous, but she had forced him into a defensive posture, and every moment that passed gave her the advantage. Hawk whispered to Danny, tension evident in his voice. "Stay low, watch. Don't breathe unless you have to, she's about to finish this." The orchestrator peered over the rock, searching for her position. He had not been able to predict her strategy. She had become the unseen force in the forest, the hunter who moved with shadows, patience, and deadly intent. Eli tilted her scope slightly, keeping him in view without revealing her own position. She knew the terrain, the angles, the trajectory. He was forced to make the next move, to expose himself if he hoped to survive. A faint whistle cut through the mist, the last signal for any hidden allies, but the orchestrator was alone. His operatives had been eliminated, leaving him isolated and vulnerable. Eli exhaled slowly, aligning her crosshairs. This was the final shot, the culmination of strategy, patience, and precision. Bang! The bullet struck true, hitting the orchestrator in the shoulder and sending him sprawling into the mist. He let out a sharp curse, realizing he had underestimated her. He tried to rise, to aim again, but his strength faltered. The battle had tilted irreversibly. Eli moved slightly, maintaining cover, eyes trained on him, ensuring that he could not recover. Hawk's voice cut through comms, calm but relieved. "Team, hold position. Do not engage unless necessary. She's got this." Below her, the SEALs watched silently, exhausted, battered, but alive. They understood the magnitude of what they had just witnessed, the skill, precision, and sheer willpower it had taken for Eli to dominate this battle. The orchestrator tried one last desperate maneuver, crawling behind a fallen log to gain a better angle. Eli's mind calculated instantaneously. She could fire a risky shot, exposing herself slightly, or wait for him to make a mistake. Patience won out. Moments later, he shifted, overextending slightly. His head and shoulder were momentarily exposed. Bang! The shot was flawless. The orchestrator slumped, incapacitated, finally neutralized. The forest fell into an uneasy silence, the mist drifting over fallen leaves and debris, carrying with it the remnants of the ambush. The danger had passed for now, but the memory of the encounter would linger in the minds of the SEALs forever. Hawk moved up cautiously, eyes scanning the surrounding forest. "Eli, you just saved us, every one of us. That was unreal." Eli lowered her rifle, her calm mask intact but fatigue visible in the subtle tension of her muscles. "The forest isn't clear yet," she murmured. "Stay vigilant. We need to exit in formation. Cover each other." The SEALs nodded, moving as a unit, trusting her guidance entirely. Every step was careful, every movement deliberate, but the fear of hidden threats had diminished. For the first time since the ambush began, they allowed themselves to breathe, to believe that survival was possible. As they moved through the mist, Eli kept watch. Her eyes scanned every shadow, every branch, every movement. The orchestrator was defeated, his operatives neutralized, but the forest remained alive with danger. She had proven herself unmatched, a single sniper controlling the battlefield, a predator among shadows. Danny whispered, awe and disbelief in his voice. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that." Hawk placed a hand on his shoulder. "You just did, and you survived it thanks to her." Eli's gaze lingered on the forest ahead. She had won the battle, but she knew this was only one fight in a world where danger never truly slept. Her role, her skill, her precision, these were her weapons in a universe that demanded vigilance, patience, and lethal efficiency. As the team exited the forest, the mist began to lift. sunlight breaking through in thin, golden streams. The battlefield behind them was silent, a testament to the lethal efficiency of one lone sniper who had changed the course of an ambush with unerring precision. But even as they moved, a faint movement in the shadows caught her eye, a whisper of a figure disappearing deeper into the forest, another reminder that danger never truly vanished, only waited. Eli's hand tightened on her rifle, calm and steady. She was ready for whatever came next. The forest was quiet for now, but the war was far from over. A single sniper had saved a team and survived an ambush designed to kill them all. But somewhere, beyond the mist, unseen eyes still watched. And the next encounter could be even deadlier.